We can never get quickly or simply to the heart of these species problems without we first clear away the distractions of political ideology and theology, and all other emotional biases. These matters only carry manifestations of the deeper problems and will cloud and distract us away from the commonality of the primary causes, which are the expression of our negative emotions, our simian urges, the ones we collectively brought with us out of Africa some 40,000 years ago. It is these abiding, common to all, primal instincts within today's mankind from which all our evil deeds emerge. From our past, we also brought the tribal follower habit, and with it the worst of the tribal chief and witch doctor cultures. For that reason, today's tyrannies and wars are no more than yesteryear's born-again reiterations, the same incessant primal interplay between despotic personalities and that of unworldly followers. It is indeed a very strange, unchanging phenomenon that runs like a well-oiled machine on autopilot, churning out the same old misery and violence across millennia. Clearly, the degree to which any society is held within the grip of despotic personalities will be at variance from one country to another. Lord Hailsham, in his book Dilemma of Democracy, informs us that democracies are elective dictatorships. It is there we see the problem that work in their more muted form. In the case of the more rabid ascendance of tyranny in any given place, it will be due to social conditions that had favoured it to do so. The Greek philosopher Plato explained the continuance of these outrageous activities through his Plato's cave analogy. It illustrates that mankind is a strange perceptual blindside, a way of glossing over the unpalatable. His message being that it is the unjust denials and delusive acceptances by our species that have sustained these dark forces of history, but it fell on deaf ears. Some of the most revealing researches into social anthropology not only concerns itself with the genesis of the human follower culture, but more importantly stresses the deviant effects it imposes upon the rational thought processes due to the suggestibility of that mentality. It is its manipulability that has cursed the follower as history's front-line, hands-on slaughterer. For in truth, it is always those who allow themselves to be so directed that physically get the blood on their hand. But nothing changes. The herd culture is as much alive today as it has ever been, and still open to the stage management of malign choreographers, though in a world greatly increased in numbers. This begs the question, do we really know where we have taken ourselves, or even fully understand what we are? We do know that good and bad is the dual nature of our complex and sophisticated species. But in terms of us as evolving creatures, all that truly evolves is our dominant ability to convert our abstract visualizations into that of palpable innovation. Its downside is that no matter how benign our progressive creations appear to be, the laws of opposites will ensure they also impose their share of negatives. The most worrying and exponential output of our conceptual abilities is weaponry technology. The danger here is that it strengthens the hand of those primal human instincts that never have evolved. The American philosopher Ayn Rand also concerned herself with these primal human instincts. She produced an informative historical exposition linking the thuggery and cunning artifice of tribal leadership beginnings as being the most significant factors inborn within the psychology of the leadership personality throughout all time. Our world is awash with the control mechanisms of past and present harmful leadership. It has caused the seduction of multitudes within a myriad of apocryphal beliefs, and to which senseless and troublesome sensitivities are consequently attached. These architects of apocryphal beliefs are in many ways synonymous with the sirens of Greek mythology, emulated in real life, sacrificing the lives of others upon the rocks of their own selfish desires. A more modern siren, the revolutionary Lenin, typifies the attitudes of history's sirens, referring to those assisting in the creation of his ideological desires as his useful idiots. As already implied, the disuniting influences of these dogmas is a prime means by which differing persuasions can be played off against one another, and is a generator of those human withdrawals behind the barricades of their fraternal comfort zones. These problems pervade countries and communities worldwide, as Ireland's north-south divide so clearly exemplifies. The universality of this activity is also displayed through the social segmentation that party politics engenders and exploits for its own ends. It seems we are hopelessly committed to Faustian bargains. I wonder how many of us took note of those yesteryear blood-soaked pogroms of today's major religions. Between the 5th century Common Era and the 17th century Renaissance period, the whole of Europe had been plunged into an ungodly, filth-ridden theological dark age. The illustrious works of the Greek philosophers on science, humanities and medicine, etc., were banished from Europe under pain of torture and death. During this period, some 25 million innocent heretics were put to death for being out of step with political correctness. Moreover, history clearly informs us that both sectarian and theological governments have always been self-serving hegemonies, thus exemplifying the phenomenon of collective elitist activity as a physical manifestation of self-empowering ambitions that are drawn together within their own self-serving, mutually protecting fraternal environments. These are the shackles many Arab nations are currently endeavouring to throw off. This predatory phenomenon displays itself endlessly through time. During the Victorian era and beyond, we note the same abuses by the landed classes. It held working people in virtual bondage through the penury of minimal income. An eventual ingenious counter to this emerged from the works of Karl Marx. To be fair, he was a creature of his time, and the abuse of power by the few upon the many was rampant. In that oppressive environment, the concept of social inversion and governance from the bottom would have seemed the equitable solution. The flaw in that theory is that human proclivities for abuse of power resides equally within all social class stratifications, no matter how they are reshuffled. What Karl Marx set out to do was close the Pandora's box of the prevailing elitist style of ruling. His naive substitution to this simply reopened that Pandora's box within his favoured lower social orders. Of course, out stepped history's same old empowerment seekers, drawn together within those same old self-serving, mutually protecting fraternal environments. The king is dead, long live the king. The great evangelizing works of these despotic secular priests was to inflict a new dark age of terror, censorship and butchery upon many countries. Mao Zedong caused the murder of even more people than Hitler and Stalin. What about tomorrow's though? We have already done terrible damage to our future. It had not registered why nature buries her carbon repositories so deeply out of reach. Then we broke another of nature's golden rules, its heresy of numbers, much of which we can now blame on our advances into agricultural, medical and pharmaceutical sciences, etc. It follows that the excessive numbers of our species then translates to overpredation upon planetary resources. The continuation of these happenings at their existing exponential pace will take us to an unthinkable tipping point of our own making. We are a runaway train heading for the buffers. Where is the sapience in that? Why are we so entrapped within our own downfalls? We are, of course, duality creatures, creatures of opposites, two people living and not always agreeing within the same head, part of a universal phenomenon that all things have their opposites. Newton's third law declares, for every force there is an equal and opposite. Even the atomic particles from which all things are composed, including us, have schizoid natures. They can switch from having substance to having none at all. As we can see, opposites abound, and of which we are part. Which returns me to the matter of our twin abstract selves, our light and dark mental aspects. Whilst these opposites maintain an inner cranial balance, we of course profit from the dynamics of their interplay. But when these darker human aspects express themselves collectively in the wider world, they can at times spread like a viral epidemic, with a unifying life of its own. We see this in sectarian conflict on our televisions, in those wild, distorted faces and manic collective posturing of disturbed fundamental extremists. Undoubtedly, there is a side to human nature that never matured into adulthood, thus to remain the child savant, given to tantrums. Whilst one hand creates great wonders, the other reaches out to destroy them.